We're so excited to bring you Digital Marketer Lab, your one-stop shop for all things marketing education. The staff here at DM experiments and tinkers all year so that we can offer you the absolute best tools that turn you into a lead-capturing, revenue-generating full-stack marketer. Like actionable guides on how to build a successful landing page, create high-converting Facebook ads, or how to make a 1-minute video ad. Or our weekly insider training with industry leaders on all the latest trends in marketing. And in-depth certifications on the core areas of digital marketing. I'm talking hyper-focused trainings for the beginner all the way up to the seasoned veteran. And the best news? Today we want to offer you a free trial of Digital Marketer Lab so that you can generate leads and make sales the right way, and not by spamming your customers to death. So level up your marketing skills with a free trial of Digital Marketer Lab. What are you waiting for? Get started now.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 2020 Make It Big conference. I'm your host, Beatrice Este with BigCommerce, and I'm here today with Ryan Deiss, CEO of DigitalMarketer. Ryan, thank you so much for being with us here today. I'd love for you to kick things off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the e-commerce and digital marketing space.
Sure, I've been doing this for, I guess, my entire adult life. I literally made my first sale online in 1999. It was actually an ebook on how to make your own baby food. And that was when I was a freshman in college. So kind of all I've done is sell different products and services online. So I've sold everything from digital products to physical products. We even owned an industrial water filter manufacturing company at one point in time. So I guess I'm kind of that classic, that classic entrepreneurial ADHD. And what's been great about that is I've got to see what works across different industries, what works across different channels, and I've got to see it across a lot of different times. And so I guess the way that Digital Marketer kind of happened is we took all of the learnings that we had from running all of these different businesses, and we kind of packaged them up and started teaching what we knew. And so I guess that's a short answer to how I got started. It's kind of the only thing that I've done in my adult life.
So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Brands across the world are constantly changing and evolving. Tell me a little bit about how the industry has shifted over the past few years when it comes to digital marketing and customer acquisition.
The industry shifted a lot. I mean, it sounds kind of silly to say. It almost sounds like almost trite to say that. But I mean, if you go back to when I first started selling online, heck, you go back just 5 years ago, a lot of people out there were still scared to buy online. I mean, there are lots of people who just didn't buy online. And I know that a lot of e-commerce sellers don't like Amazon and have a really good reason not to like what Amazon does with a lot of their practices in terms of independent retailers and independent online sellers. But for better or worse, Amazon did teach a lot of people how to buy online. It got a lot of people who are not comfortable buying online to get comfortable. So I'd say that's the single biggest change that's happened. Next to that, you have the emergence of social and social channels. When I first got started, really the only way you could reach was through just broad market display advertising. So you could buy banner ads or you were buying search. But there wasn't really a good opportunity to engage outside of those channels. And when you think about what Facebook and Instagram in particular, when I think about Instagram and this visual social medium, what that has meant for sellers, that's also been huge. But both of those things combined, the third big change I've seen is competition. Competition today is more fierce than it's ever been. When I first got started, I was one of the few people doing this. If you showed up, you basically got to win just by being there. That's not the case anymore. With obviously tools like BigCommerce making it easier to launch a store, with ad platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Google and YouTube making it easier to reach audiences. More people than ever are getting in on the game. And so not only is there more noise, but just ad prices have skyrocketed. I remember when you could buy clicks for a nickel, right? And so in a lot of ways, it's great. It really is. It's great that the market is bigger than ever. It's great that there are more tools and media than ever, but I think we also need to acknowledge that it's harder than ever to acquire customers profitably on the front end.
For sure. And 5 years ago, we were seeing many DTC brands spending major dollars on customer acquisition, when in reality, conversion rates were a little bit of an afterthought. Tell me why it's so important for brands to have conversion rate optimization, and how can they accomplish this?
So I would actually argue that you shouldn't focus on customer acquisition as much. I mean, I don't want to necessarily kind of disagree with the question, because I do think that conversion rate optimization is really, really important. But I don't believe that it should be the primary focus. I think that, and what I really encourage marketers and what I encourage sellers to do is to focus more on customer value optimization. Right. So yes, conversion rate optimization is important, but really, customer value optimization, if we can increase the value of each customer, I think that's the secret today. And I'll give you an example. If you think about doubling your conversion rate on your website, that's hard, right? Especially like with, again, the templates that people start off with, all the resources that are out there. Most people, when they launch a new store, they're pretty good. These stores are pretty good. They do a pretty good job. And so to then take this thing that's pretty good and to double its conversion rate, that's really hard to do. But what you can do if you focus on the back end, right? If you say, okay, how do we expand our product lines? How do we do things like, bundling? And how do we, maybe shift the goal, instead of doubling conversion rates, to doubling our cart value, right? If we can double the size of what an average customer is worth when they go through all these different, upsells, cross-sells, bundling, what that means, and that's a lot easier to do, by the way, than doubling your conversion rate. But what that means is you can now spend twice as much to acquire a customer. So yes, conversion rate optimization is important. You should do it. It's kind of table stakes. But if your goal is to increase your customer acquisition efforts, then you kind of have to shift your thinking from, how do I lower, my cost to acquire, shift it instead to how do I increase my ability to spend to acquire? And the only way you're going to do that is by having customers that are worth a lot more.
You bring up a really valid point with that change of mindset from conversion rate optimization to customer value optimization. And with that said, what are a few other factors that play into customer value optimization, and how can brands leverage these as they scale?
So we think about other factors that are going to impact your customer acquisition efforts, and just generally, your ability to grow and scale. Yes, the economics are important. I mean, being able to spend more to acquire than what it costs. Being able to earn more rather than what it costs is important. But you can't ignore things like brand. Brand is still one of those things that matters. Now, I would argue it's easier than ever to create a brand in terms of a logo. When I talk about brand, I mean when somebody sees your ad, they look at it and they think, oh, I like them. Even more when somebody sees an email from you in your inbox, they go, I like these people. I want to open this. I want to open this email. Most people, if you ask most folks, what is the number one factor that will improve an email's open rate? Right? What's the number one thing that's going to improve an email open rate? Most people, if they're fairly knowledgeable, are going to say it's the subject line. Right? And the subject line is really important, right? Great subject lines get opened more. But actually, the thing that improves the open rate of an email more than anything else is the from field, right? You've got best friends in your life that they could send you an email with a dumb subject line, no subject line, but you see who it's from and you're opening that email. That to me is brand, right? That right there is the definition of brand. And so I think that's what, when we think about customer acquisition efforts and how are we able to acquire customers at scale, even though ad costs are going up, there is no replacement for having a brand such that when an email arrives, people want to open it. There's no replacement for, there's no substitute for when they see the ad that they want to click on it and find out what's going on. And I'll tell you, there's only one real way to get there, and that's to become a source of value. And so that's why I'm very, very big on, if you're an e-commerce seller, email is important. Retargeting is important. But if all you're doing is emailing promotions, then you got to know that the value of your brand is going to dissipate over time. If all anybody ever sees in their Facebook feed or their Instagram feed is an ad about your latest sale or some new product that you have, your brand value is going to dissipate. And so I believe that commerce companies today really need to think more like media companies. I think commerce companies today need to think, how do we add value for our customers beyond just selling them stuff? Because if you can build a big brand, that is the ultimate way to acquire customers inexpensively.
We could sit here and talk about customer experience for hours, but let's focus on it here just for a moment. We know that customer experience truly is a hybrid between customer acquisition and customer retention. And most recently, Google even announced in July of 2020 that user experience will now factor into search rankings beginning in 2021. What can brands do today to make sure that they are meeting, delivering, and even exceeding customer expectations?
I think if brands want to exceed customer expectations, they need to acknowledge that the customer experience part, it can't just be an afterthought. And most companies that I know, especially most independent, smaller retailers, they don't have a customer experience department in the same way that, one of these massive like Madison Avenue, brands might have. So I believe the simplest way to improve the customer experience aspect is to involve marketing in it. All too often, marketing within companies, they see their job as I'm supposed to drive traffic, or we're supposed to generate, X number of unique visitors below, a certain traffic cost, or, we need to generate Y number of sales below an acceptable acquisition number. And I think that's important. But I don't believe that marketing should stop when the click happens. I don't believe marketing should stop, when the sale is made. Marketing needs to own the entirety of that customer journey, right? Which means the same people who are writing the copy that's on the sales page, they also need to write the copy that's on the underside of the box when you open it, right? The act of unboxing the thing that they purchase from you is marketing. I would argue it's one of the most important parts of marketing. And I see so many businesses that try so hard to get the sale and they sort of bail out. I mean, that's the equivalent of, somebody just working to get, this person they really like to go out on a date with them. And then, when they show up for the date, they just look like they just rolled around in garbage, right? And they're just obnoxious to deal with, but they think the win is getting the date. No, you've got to make sure that experience is amazing, because if the experience is amazing, they'll buy again. And so much of this, we're talking about how do you scale profitably, as things are more challenging. The easiest way to do it is to sell more to the people that you have. Well, if that experience when they bought wasn't a great one on the front end, you could be sure you're not going to get a second date. Just think about an example. If you've ever bought anything from Apple, right? That unboxing, the actual sucking sound of when you remove the lid, that's marketing, right? Apple understands that having a successful unboxing is a critical component to, giving folks that aha moment, that aha experience. I would contrast that with another experience that I had recently where I actually bought a very expensive handbag for my wife for her birthday from Nordstrom. And, her birthday is in April, so we're just right smack dab in the middle of pandemic and quarantine. So it's not like I can go to the store, buy this handbag. And I know if I went into the store at Nordstrom, I'd get great service. They would help me find just the perfect thing. They would box it up in a way that it presented really well. They'd gift wrap it for me. And I didn't expect that degree of service, but I thought when I ordered online, I assumed that it would be similar to that. So the box arrives and, I take it out of the cardboard box and put it in another box and wrap it up. But I remember when my wife opened it and she pulled the bag out, like it was still in the original like plastic wrap. She literally had to tear open the plastic wrap to get to this very expensive handbag. And it was filled with, not really nice kind of filler paper. It just wasn't a good experience. And this is from a company like Nordstrom, who's known for customer experience. So I think one of the big advantages that a lot of independent retailers can have right now over the big boys and girls, so to speak, is to really think about marketing all the way through the customer journey to make sure that that customer experience and that unboxing in particular is a phenomenal one, and to treat it like another upsell opportunity.
For sure. And as the industry progresses, we've really seen the value of content increasing as well. I know you mentioned earlier how commerce companies should really be developing a media-first mindset. Talk to me a little bit about what this means and how it can help companies grow.
Yeah, when I talk about commerce companies needing to think more like a media company, I don't simply mean that you need to have a blog. And I think a lot of commerce companies, they say, no, we do content marketing. See, we have a blog. See, we've got this newsletter. Check. And they see it as a box to check. I think the difference and what I'm really suggesting, if you're a commerce company, is that you stop defining yourself as a commerce company. And I know that can be kind of tough to hear, but I hear a lot of folks saying like, "Oh, we're a D2C company. We're a direct to consumer company." That's a channel. That is not a business model, unto itself. So the way that I've always treated businesses, whether it was a commerce company, a services company, brick and mortar, I think that it is important that brands today stop defining their business by the products they sell or the way that they sell them. Stop defining your business by the product that you sell or the way that you sell them. And instead, start defining your business by the audience that you serve. That audience first mindset, that media first mindset is, I believe, the ultimate differentiator. I think that's the ultimate difference maker. That's how, I talked about before, how do you get to a point where when you send an email to somebody, they actually want to open it? That requires that you be seen as a source of value, which means that who do we see as a source of value? Generally, media companies. So if you see yourself as a commerce company that also does content marketing, I think your scale is going to be limited. If instead you see yourself as a media company that monetizes through commerce, but audience first, media first, I think that's the advantage. A good friend of mine said the analogy that he used is commerce companies need to stop thinking about themselves as Walmart and start thinking of themselves more as Disneyland, where people show up for the theme park and then get exited through the gift shop. And so the way that I encourage quote unquote commerce companies today to structure their entire businesses is we think about it like a solar system. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you have your holding company, right? The company that you work for and that your core team works for. And I want you to think about that like the sun. Okay, so if that's the sun in the center, then what you have orbiting around the sun are planets. Now, a lot of people say, okay, so this planet that's orbiting around, that's my e-commerce store. What I would prefer that you think about it is the planet is some type of audience first business, right? And it might be that it's a blog or a content site. It might be that it's a podcast. It might be that it's an email newsletter. Maybe it is your store, but it has really great, content around it. It's clear when people show up that it's there for them. And then instead of thinking about the business, the planet, kind of that core as the products and services we sell, think about those as moons orbiting around the planet. If you would orient yourself that way, where your holding company, is the sun. That's the source of energy and the source of light, but there's no life there because there's no customers there. That's just where the work gets done. And if the planet is not, your site, but instead that's your audience that you're serving, and then the moon's orbiting around it, I think that will place it in kind of the appropriate. It'll have you thinking about it the appropriate way. I hear so often companies, brands saying that, the brand is a moat. We're a very well-known brand. Everybody knows our brand. I would just remind you, brands are getting upended and disrupted left and right all the time. There were massive brands that were meaningful for hundreds of years, and then recently, they were gone. I don't believe that brand is the moat. I believe that influence, I believe that attention are moats. And if we think about what is it if you have influence and you have attention, right now we call them influencers, right? But really it's media, right? Even the influencers, they're kind of just their own media company. I think if we just call it what it is, it's media. And if we oriented ourselves and said we want to create media and then sell them things, I think that that's the key to scaling today.
So thinking full circle now, it really comes back to understanding your customers and identifying the market. How should brands be approaching their customer base, and what can they do to actively retain them at a low cost?
When it comes to retaining your customers at a lower cost, so let's just get really, really tactical. Email them. And email them more than you think you should. Now, I know this may sound a little bit contrary to what I said before. I'm not saying that necessarily email them promotions all the time, but I believe if you're not emailing your customers at least every week, if you're not emailing your past customers at least every week, they will forget about you. They will. So much of retention is just continuing to show up, right? We all have those people in our lives who are incredibly meaningful at one point in time. Maybe they were, our roommate in college, or our best friend after we moved out on our own, or, maybe we went to high school with them. And now they're gone, right? We never see them. We maybe, occasionally we'll see an update, on Facebook or Instagram and we'll like it, but really they're not there. Well, why did that happen? Well, it happened because we got out of contact with them. And so much of customer retention is just continuing to show up. And a lot of times I'll hear brands say, but if I email them every week, they're going to unsubscribe. Well, if they unsubscribe, then that's one thing. They're making the decision that they're not interested anymore. That's fine. That's totally fine. They're saying, I don't like this person anymore. Great, right? That is what it is. You're not going to appeal to everyone forever. I would take that, 7 days a week and twice on Sunday over apathy. And what we have with a lot of commerce companies is they're really good at optimizing the front end. They're good at acquisition. They get that first sale and then they high five and go, woo, done. And they never follow up. They don't stay in touch. And now that customer is just gone, right? They're just gone in the wind. So I would practically, tactically, if you want to, if you want to continue to engage and retain your customers, email them weekly. And when I say email them weekly, I mean email them weekly with content. Like great content that they'll actually want to read. Content that is standalone great. Not content that, where, you're talking about something and saying, but if you like this, go buy our thing. Like serve them at least once a week. I would encourage you also to send a promo once or twice a week. So I tell companies 3 emails a week. That's what you should do. If you feel like that's too many, how often do you talk to the people that you care about the most? I bet it's more than 3 times a week. All right. So once with content, once or twice with a relevant, timely promotion, and also retargeting. Retargeting is the single greatest gift that advertising has ever given us. The ability to follow up via advertising for the people who visited a page or who, got to an order form but didn't complete their order. That is magic. I think we forget about that, but all too often I see commerce companies make one of 2 mistakes, one or both these mistakes with retargeting. One, they stop the retargeting campaigns too quickly. They go, okay, I'm going to retarget somebody. If they come to a page, I'm going to retarget them to try to get them to come back and buy this thing. And if they buy it, then I'm going to stop advertising to them. We're done. That's one mistake. The other mistake they do is they keep retargeting about the same thing people already bought. Don't do either of those things. But instead, if somebody bought something, continue to follow up and retarget with them on maybe some ways to get more out of that thing they bought. Right? Continue to serve them, retarget them in a way of saying, hey, if you like this and bought this, you might be interested in this. Keep the conversation going, whether it's via email, chat, retargeting, just keep the conversation going. Because love me or hate me, both of those are better than just apathy.
So as we begin to near the end of our session, what advice do you have for brands looking to scale while still lowering their customer acquisition costs? What tools can they implement to help them reach their goals?
Yeah, so if your goal is if you want to scale, lower your acquisition costs, I'll give you kind of close with 3 quick tips that I believe just about any company can do. Number 1, start a weekly email newsletter. But here's the biggie, treat it like a product. So if I said start a weekly email newsletter, and you thought, oh no, we've got one of those. It's where we send updates on our promotions. That's not what I mean. Start a weekly email newsletter, but treat it like a product, treat it like a magazine. Ask yourself, what newsletter, what magazine would I love nothing more to advertise in, right? That's kind of the big, that's the big kind of tactic. If you can do that and implement it and get it launched as a product, I think that's a biggie. The second thing I would say is have steady retargeting campaigns going for the people who have already bought. the greatest expense any business will incur is the expense of acquiring a brand new customer. Once you have them, be willing to spend 5 times more than you spent to acquire them to come back and get them to buy again, because they're worth probably 10 times what a lead is worth, right? And then the third kind of biggie is, if you don't want to launch a newsletter, like if the idea of kind of launching a newsletter or a media property scares you, look at acquisition, right? Does it make sense? Is there a blog that's out there doing what you want? Is there, does somebody have an email newsletter? Does somebody have a really great podcast that you'd love to advertise in? Maybe what you should do, instead of looking for ways to buy advertising, maybe you should look at ways to buy and effectively own your own media.
And lastly, for those tuning into this session, what are a few key takeaways that you'd like them to walk away with?
I would hope that what you got of this kind of takeaway number one is focus on increasing customer values first, not just increasing conversion rates. All right. Don't look at necessarily decreasing what it costs to acquire a customer at the unit level. Look at decreasing what it costs to acquire a customer as an overall percentage of how much you're earning from those customers. And the only way to do that is to make customers worth more. So stop asking, how do we pay less? Switch it and say, how can we afford to pay even more than we're paying right now? I think that switch in thought, just asking that question of yourself and of your team is going to help you scale. I would also say, number two, shift your mindset from a commerce company that happens to do content marketing to a media company that happens to monetize through commerce. Media companies right now are dying left and right because the only way they know how to monetize is through advertising. You have a far superior monetization vehicle by monetizing through the sale of actual products. So do the thing that the media companies are doing and the thing that they're not doing. And I think that you're going to get the best of both worlds. And then thirdly, I'll kind of go back to what I said before. Consider acquisition. People who I know who are really great on the media side generally aren't as strong on the merchandising, product commerce side. People who I know who are really strong on the merchandising commerce side generally aren't as strong on the media side. So you can either develop that or you can acquire that. And the great news for you is there's a phenomenal inefficiency right now in the market. Commerce companies are worth quite a bit, right? Commerce companies sell at much higher multiples than media companies do. So you have an opportunity right now, a pretty cool arbitrage opportunity where you could acquire a media company for 1x, 2x revenue, what it's earning right now. You bolt on your commerce component, make it instantly more valuable day one. And let's say something happens with, Facebook or Instagram. Let's say they change the rules, they change the game, they change the algorithm. Let's say a big competitor comes in. If you own your own media, if you are your own influencer, then that is the ultimate moat. You have the ultimate brand protection at that point. So shift the thinking from, minimizing customer acquisition costs to maximizing the ability to spend through maximizing customer values. Shift your mindset from thinking about a commerce company that does content marketing to a media company that monetizes through commerce. And then thirdly, think about M&A. Micro M&A opportunities. You may think we're not a big company. You would be shocked at how many of these really great popular blogs and newsletters, even Facebook groups, stuff like that, are making no money and can be acquired for almost nothing. So keep those open, keep those ideas open, and I'm confident that you'll develop a lot of skills as a e-commerce company that most of your competitors don't have.
That is incredible advice. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us and being part of the 2020 Make It Big conference.
This was fun, great, and thanks so much for having me and for all the work that you all are doing at BigCommerce.
That was such a great session with Ryan Deiss, CEO of DigitalMarketer. Be sure to engage with us on social media using the hashtag MakeItBigConf and share what you've learned. If you're looking for more insights, be sure to tune into more Make It Big sessions by heading over to www.bigcommerce.com/makeitbig.